Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to the further adventures of now gunslinger Russell Miranda. As we left him, he had just passed his test, just beaten the instructor with a little bit of subterfuge in his big hammer fists, and his friend Irving Lowry has called him up to the Hall of the Fathers at Gilead Castle. And you can see I've modified the character card down there. He has his big irons on the character sheet now. And by TriCube Tales rules, everyone he starts the session with 3 resolve and 3 karma. So let's put those karma back there. Well spent to help him beat the instructor. Now they were sharing well, not sharing a cigarette, but Irving had rolled Russell a cigarette, and they headed up towards the castle, chatting, uh, somewhat, mostly Irving chatting, because Russell is still a little taken aback at now being a gunslinger. But as they approach the castle, Russell notices that there do seem to be a lot more gunslingers than usual, uh, sort of gathering and preparing. There's a lot of horses in the courtyard with sons and I guess squires of sorts, the assistants. The kids are strapping horses down, lashing provisions, filling up the saddlebags and whatnot. And Russell, as he and Irving walk in, Jay DeShane comes over and gives him a stern nod. He says, "Well fought, boy. Well fought. I knew you could do it. And I heard you got your knife back. Very good. I don't think you'll have to worry about Levi anymore. He fled out the east gate. He won't be coming to Gilead on any other than if he comes at the end of a rope. Anyway, we were hoping that you would finish up today, and I know it's always tiring to beat the instructor. But I hope you got enough grit left in you to partake in today's adventures." And he kind of gives him a grin and then moves off into the crowd to talk to other gunslingers. Um, Irving smiles at Russell and says that it was planned whether or not you passed it. They were just hoping that you would, and kind of set everything up in hopes that they'd have one more gunslinger. There. This horse, he leads him over to a horse uh, saddled and tied up. This is for you to use for now. It's Side to Shane is lending you one of his good horses. Uh, I suspect he'll probably give it to you, since what good's a gunslinger without a horse, right? And he's a good guy. I think he likes you a lot. I know he was definitely impressed. Anyway, uh, his name is Thunderbolt, and oh, there's Felix Kane. He's the one in charge of the posse. He's stepping up on the platform, and let's get closer. Stepping up on the nearby platform is a an older gunslinger, uh, one well known to Gilead by the name of Felix Kane, and he has your he's a bit short, but he has the typical big, thick, drooping gunslinger mustache, and he has a big cowboy hat that seems almost seems too big for his head, but he's of a grave demeanor, And when he speaks, the other gunslingers listen. And he says, "I'd like to welcome our newest gunslinger, Russell Miranda." As he says that, several of the other gunslingers look and give him nods. They're not gunslingers, generally speaking, aren't of the happy slappy type. So they nod their approval, and one of them, a nearby gunslinger, looks down and sees the huge revolvers that Russell selected, and he gives him a little smile and a wink. And then Felix Kane continues to speak, and he's here just in time. The gunslingers have decided that we need to ride out in force. Everyone's heard about the tales of strangeness spreading about the inner baronies, challenging the affiliation, rebels, bandits, even worse. Today we're riding out as a posse, a big one. We're going to make a statement not only to the people of Gilead, but to the people that we come across, the people we lay to nines in the road, who would challenge the Gilead Council, challenge the affiliation, and challenge the way of the white. So everyone say your final goodbyes. Make sure your guns are loaded and your gear strapped on. And let's head on. Now at that there is a bit of a whoop and a holler at the idea of heading out into the battlefield. And Irving takes Russell back to their horses. Russell, of course, has never owned a horse, but as an apprentice, he's trained. He knows how to take care of a horse. So he's already said his goodbyes to his folks this morning. And instead of feeling exhausted after his fight, he feels exhilarated because things are just moving so fast for him now. He went from being a gunslinger to immediately going out on this posse being led by Felix Kane, the Felix Kane. So he hops up, Irving hops up, but he does see his parents have gathered along the road with many people outside the gate to the castle lining the road to watch the procession of the gunslingers heading out to fight for Gilead. And he sees his mother and father, and he gives them a slight wave. His parents are both kind of teary-eyed with pride, and they ride out through the gates into the land beyond, into Midworld. Let's shift over to our Midworld map here. All right. This is a map that I've just found online in a mapping forum or gunslinger forum. I don't remember where, but thanks to John DeBaum and Sauron Servant. That's the names down at the bottom. And as we can see here, there's Gilead. Boing. I love that little one ping only effect on these Roll20 maps. So they ride out the gate onto the plains around Gilead, and they form up. And Kane is talking to different leaders of the experience, the veteran gunslingers, and breaking them off in groups of two or three, and some of the groups are they're bringing squires and assistants and other soldiers with them. So it's not only gunslingers; it's actually some of Gilead's soldiers. They're just being led by groups of gunslingers. And so what started off as an exciting launch the adventure quickly turns into a prolonged um, administrative task as he starts getting people where they're supposed to go. And of course, some people don't want to go that way, they want to go this way. But Felix Kane, he's dealt with gunslingers his whole life, and so he gets people where they're supposed to go in relatively good time. And he comes to Russell and Irving, and he says, I know that the two of you are new to our order, and I want you to know that I don't hold that against anybody. I fully expect you to hold your guns and remember the face of your father like any other gunslinger under my command. I'm sending you two off as a pair, and I need you to. What we're going to do here, we're going to go ahead and roll. We're going to use um, the Tricube Tales. Tricube Tales, of course, has a bunch of these settings pages, and there's one called Wardens of the Weird West. Let's pop that guy up here. There we go. Wardens of the Weird West. Okay, I'm going to try to get all that text on there. Just so you can see, there we go. And we're just going to roll up a random solo adventure to send our guys on. 2 die 6. Actually, let's see. We'll do 1 die 6. All right, at 2. Come on. Sorry. All right, 2. Find a missing person. 6. Inside or near a mountain cabin. Well, dealing with double the trouble. All right. So that's the hunt is on right there. That's the basic chart. I'm going to come down here and see what we've got. Find a missing person. Okay, so number 2. I'm just going to use this instead of making up my own. A disgruntled Pukwuji has kidnapped a young child from town. The parents are desperate to have their offspring return safe and sound. All right, so we're going to say that he's been informed of a kidnapping about a child, and that's what he's going to send them to. And 6 is this hermit's hut. All right, so this hermit is the one believed to have done the kidnapping. Could possibly be that this hermit gets accused of a lot, just, because. And for tip of the iceberg, wardens soon discover that there is far more to this mission than meets the eye, and the enemy numbers are much greater than expected. Well, of course, you gotta have some kind of twist like that. Okay, well, that sounds pretty cool. I'm going to hit pause here, and I couldn't get not that that little square camera is of much account anyway. Watching the videos, but for some reason I couldn't get the I couldn't get the camera on Roll20 to work this morning. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause and I'm going to uh, jot down what that translates into their mission, and I'll discuss what I picked and type it in just 1 second. All right. Well, I'm a fan of, but I'm not like an expert in, the gunslinger world, the Dark Tower world. Um, I know enough to make hopefully interesting stories out of it. So let's get that off the screen there. Okay, so I decided to turn this to make it more into a gunslinger um, type story, just to adjust it from the setting, the Weird West setting there. Um, so Felix Kane rides over to the two, well, boys, although really they're men now, um, and he says, "Yonder to the west is the mining town of Bone Ridge. It's out in the Shaved Mountains. They claim that the local Manny Hermit kidnapped a young boy by the name of David House. Now, the Houses, they're mine owners out there, uh, and they're good people. But from the note I got, and this was some weeks ago, the hermit was not at his normal house. He apparently lives up in a shack somewhere up the mountains, which of course, the Manny people like to hang around the mountains looking for holes in the world, so they say. But he's gone, and so's the child. Their posse has looked all over, and they haven't found a trace. I don't suspect that you boys will find a trace either. But it's possible. And part of this huge posse is to let everyone know in New Canaan that we are actually in charge, that we are taking care of business, and we are fighting the dark. And so when you get there, you find the Houses, you make sure to let them know that we are here at their request, because they reached out to Gilead and Gilead has answered. All right, it will be easy to find from here. You just head straight west. You head through the baby forest, which you guys both know pretty well. For those who are not up on gunslinger lore, the baby forest is a place where gunslinger trainees, they use it for battlegrounds and training, simulations, stuff like that. And then you just keep heading on straight west. Once you hit the mountains, Bone Ridge is just south, maybe half a day's ride. You'll find it easy enough. It's a mining town. You'll probably see some smoke from the smelters, and there'll be people around and point you in the right direction. I know you boys will remember the faces of your fathers, but this is very serious. This is not some riding holiday. This is not some walkabout. This is not a tour of the inner barony. You are gunslingers. And you are here, and you will be there representing the affiliation and Gilead. All right, carry on. And Felix tips his head to the west, and the boys, although they don't like to think of themselves as boys at this point, being gunslingers, but they head on. They spur their horses and give them some headroom, stretch them out on the where they can on the plains. And as they're about to enter the baby forest, they look back and they can see the dust trails and the various groups of gunslingers being sent to in different directions throughout the barony of New Canaan. And they head into the baby forest. Let's see if anything interesting. Let's see if let's do one scene. We'll do one scene here. Let me shuffle my cards a bunch of times just because I always get all those face cards. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. And of course, got a face card anyway. Advance a secondary subplot negative. At this point, we don't really have a secondary subplot. Interpret result and draw again. Let's see, what is our secondary subplot about? I'll do a little roll here on that. Okay, so destruction. Destruction and jealousy. Okay, I'm gonna say that maybe this is involving Levi. Maybe Levi. I kind of figured Levi would show up at some point in the in the adventure, or maybe not this adventure, but some place in the campaign. Um, let's see if it is. Let's see if it's him. I'm gonna say we'll say on a 5 or 6, it's him. Otherwise, we'll interpret it as something based on the next card. Okay, so Levi is on the move. Let's draw a card and... Okay, so negative. Good grief, look at this. See, I just keep drawing these things. Okay, interpret results. Advance primary subplot. So at this point, the primary... Well, it's not really a subplot. It's kind of the primary plot. All right. A standard brawny challenge. And the scene hints were that it was destruction and jealousy. All right. I'm going to roll to see if... Let's see. You know what? I'm going to roll on this wilderness events table on the Adobe here, just for some inspiration, because I tell you, I'm drawing a blank. 2-6 with the left or topmost being the first one. Okay, 42. So 42. A running animal. Okay, well, I think maybe the best way to do is I'm not going to relate this to Levi. It is a little too soon, and I think it's a little too random for him to have plotted anything, especially since he would not have a way to know. So I'm just going to take that part out, and we're going to make it's a standard brawny challenge, and it's a running animal. Let's see. Oh, you know what? Actually, we can. Um, so as they travel on. As they get into the forest, it's not very far from Gilead, but uh, Russell feels very thirsty suddenly. So he reaches around and he let me get that out of the way. He reaches around and he pulls out. He opens up the saddlebag that holds his water, and as he pulls out the saddlebag, some kind of firecracker or something goes off in that pack. It's just a loud bang and the smell of gunpowder, and smoke comes billowing out of his saddlebag, and the horse freaks and takes off. And that's going to be the standard. That's going to be the challenge, and it's running breakneck speed. He's trying to guide it back and forth, trying to steer around. Irving's like, "Hey, where are you going? Where are you going?" And he's trying to catch up, but of course, through a forest is not really the best place to go charging with your horse. So Russell is trying to calm his horse, and he's trying to wrestle it back into control. Every as they're racing through, pounding, the horse's hooves are uh, digging up little divots in the underbrush as he's swerving it back and forth between the trees or through the trees. He glances every now and then back at the saddlebag. There's still smoke coming out of it. Doesn't look like it's on fire or anything. Uh, but he finally he grabs the reins, and he just starts struggling with those his big muscles to turn the horse into a circle so that it will stop. So that's going to be a standard challenge. So that's going to be he's brawny. So that's going to be 3 die 6 standard. Hmm. Okay, so he does not he is not able to even if he were to spend a karma point, he's not able to get that in control. So the horse eventually, as he's trying to get the horse under control, he turns back and forth, and then the horse uh, trips over stumbles over a root, and um, Russell is thrown into a branch as the horse stumbles. Uh, um, Russell runs into a branch, and it knocks him out of his horse, knocks him out of the saddle onto the ground, and he's going to take a beating from that one. Oh, let's see. I don't have the character over here. So I'm going to head back over to this square here, and I'll just remove a resolve. So the branch smacks him in the face, and he lands on his back. The bigger they are, the harder they fall, and he can feel the muscles in his back twinge as he comes down hard, presumably on the root that that the horse stumbled on. Of course, he doesn't know what happened to the horse. He was too busy just trying to hang on and steer it, so he doesn't have any details. Irving comes up. Irving rides past with a quick glance to see that Russell is okay, and he runs forward. And as Russell is getting back up, uh, adjusting himself, setting his hat straight, making sure that he can still move everything. He does have some blood gushing from a cut on his cheek. And several minutes later, Irving comes back with Russell's horse. think I called it Thunderbolt. I should probably write that down somewhere. But he comes back with Russell's horse, and the horses and the rider are all panting. And Irvin looks down at Russell and says, "What the hell happened, Russell? Did you shoot your horse?" "No, I didn't shoot my horse. I opened that pack. Is this some kind of prank of yours or something? Open the prank and some kind of firecracker goes off?" "I did no such thing." "Well, all right, all right, all right. Let's just take a look. Let's open up." And so Russell pats his horse down to calm it so as he approaches, and he opens the saddle and or opens a saddlebag. I mean, he opens a saddlebag and looks inside. There's still a little bit of smoke that drifts out when he opens it, and he looks down and he reaches in and he pulls out what looks like an expended firecracker, like a squib, the remains of it anyway. The water, the water is. Let's see if the water in canteen is damaged at all. I'll just say on a 6. Okay. So the water, everything in there seems to be fine because it's mostly travel stuff and it's wrapped up, no damage. But there's definitely there's black where this thing went off. So it was some kind of trick or prank or something. But Russell thinks it's a little bit more than a prank because it was certainly, while gunslingers are, fighting men, and they're always they're always happy to pull pranks and jokes on people. He doesn't get the impression that on this kind of day that they would have done something like that, given how the seriousness and how grave uh, things were, especially being led by Felix Kane, because he is not the kind of gunslinger who would put up with those shenanigans. And as he's looking through, he sees a small. It looks like a medal. It's a small copper disc, and he knows the copper disc. It looks like the same medal that his father, similar to a medal that his father got in the battle that he lost the war, or lost his arm in the war. But he knows that it was actually Levi. That this medal belongs to Levi, and it was Levi who wasn't just trying to do a prank. He was hoping that he would get thrown from his horse and hurt. Now, of course, Russell doesn't know the details. He just knows that Jay Deshane said that the Levi had left town. But he knows inside that that's who it was from. Levi would obviously not have come in himself to do this. He had somebody that he either paid, or somebody that maybe is a friend or an ally, because Levi does have friends in the Gilead court, or at least connections. He did work there. He was a messenger, so he may have, somebody that still has some sort of misplaced loyalty to him, at least as Russell thinks. So Russell gets his drink of water, rubs his shoulder that is still twinging and hurting from the fall, and just presses his handkerchief up against the cut on his cheek until it stops bleeding. And he says, "Well, at least no one saw that. That wouldn't be a great way to start off your first day as a brave gunslinger." So he chuckles at the whole thing, and then Irving laughs too, and they get back on their mounts and continue riding west through the baby forest on their way to the mining town of Bone Ridge. And we'll call it there. Hope you enjoyed the adventure. One thing that was good about that is, that whole thing, I made one roll, and I only threw that in there to at the very end just to kind of have a scene. Everything just kind of played out, at least to me, as I'm, you know, talking to myself for half an hour, pretending to be pretending to be a gunslinger. But it's good to sometimes see that these scenes don't have to all be based on roles, right? All that stuff with the gunslingers, it was interesting to work out and come up with Felix Kane, his character. I'll be revisiting him. If nothing else, he just has a really cool name. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the further adventures of newly branded gunslinger Russell Miranda. And we will see you next time. And maybe next time the Roll 20 camera will work for me. Happy gaming.